John. All right, let's go to our next game. Two big games of the weekend here, Zach. We have Penn State and USC. We have in a Big Ten clash. Number 4, Penn State faces off against USC this Saturday at LA Memorial Coliseum. Penn State is undefeated at 5-0, but has had some close calls, including Bowling Green. They are favored by 5.5 points, with star running back Nicholas Singleton expected to return after missing last week's game. Penn State boasts a strong defense, allowing just 11.4 points per game. Meanwhile, USC has struggled lately, dropping 2 of its last 3 games. However, playing at home gives the Trojans a shot, especially with their improved defense and offense scoring over 30 points per game. Kickoff is at 3:30 on CBS or Paramount Plus, whichever viewing choice you would like to have. Zach, your thoughts on the game?
You know, not that FPI is everything, but this is really intriguing to me, especially with what I think about Penn State. FPI favors USC. It's a very small favoring, but FPI favors
Does it
them.
say why?
No, it just says the matchup predictor is 51.8% to 48.2.
Yeah, ESPN FBI is drunk.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, could USC win this game? Yes, I think there is an avenue that USC could win this game. But my goodness, I can't see the logic in picking USC to win this game. Other than like if you're a fan, if you're a USC fan, obviously you're gonna pick your team to win this game. You're gonna find a way. But I can't see it happening.
I think the pathway, one, it's a home game for USC. And I think there is the reality that Lincoln Riley could outcoach Franklin. I think that's on the table. I'm not saying he's going to. I'm saying it's on the table. I think you can make the argument that USC's playmakers are the best that Penn State's seen. I think you can make the argument that I think that's the rest of my arguments. I think Penn State's going to kill him.
I mean, I could see Lincoln Riley out coaching James Franklin, possibly. I mean, he did outcoach Brian Kelly. So I could see that possibly. I don't think it's likely, but I could see it possibly happening. But at the end of the day, like, I look at Penn State, and even if James Franklin, like poops himself on the sideline and just like completely falls apart, the defensive line should win you the game. Like, this defensive line versus offensive line, you should win the game if nothing else, but because of that, right? Like,
yeah. Well, and I think so. James Franklin did say that they're very optimistic that Nick Singleton will play.
Yeah, he's expected to. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I think Katron Allen is a good back, right? Like, I think he's a good back.
They're both really good backs in my mind.
Singleton's the more explosive back, and he's playing like he did as a freshman. And I think that, to me, between running game and the defense, I just think Penn State is going to overwhelm USC from the start. And I think even if Miller Moss has a great game, I still think it's going to be a fight. I think the other thing about USC that's just something that, just to be clear on, is I think USC, everybody thinks of good offense. They have only scored more than 30 points twice. Once was against Utah State. The other was against Wisconsin. And Wisconsin shot themselves in the foot more than it was good USC. They scored 17 against Minnesota.
Yeah.
Like, they scored 24 against Michigan, which is the same amount that Minnesota, who's not a great offense, did. And they scored 27 against LSU, who is not a great defense.
Yeah, LSU's defense is bad. Yeah, so I think that one of the biggest things for me in this one is that Eric Gentry isn't playing, the linebacker for USC. He still isn't practicing right now. And I think that dude is awesome. Like, every time I've watched Eric Gentry play, like, you watch USC's defense and you think, oh, bad defense. And I get that. But, like, he is a really, really good defender. He got hurt late in that Wisconsin game. That was unfortunate, especially since they were, I think, winning by a touchdown or two in that fourth quarter. So it was like, what are you still doing having him in when he got hurt or left the game, or however that turned out? I can't remember exactly. So, But I think with him out, like USC's run defense has just been much poorer
Yeah.
without
Yeah.
him there. And I think that's going to continue. Like I think this is a game where you could see Nick Singleton get 150, 200 yards on the ground.
Yeah.
And you could see him and Katron Allen together with like 2 touchdowns each in this one.
Yeah. I
So
agree. I think one other thought, I think the one advantage for USC offensively would be the receiving core. But KJ Winston has been out. Like, I think they may have confirmed it's a season-ending injury. It's at least long term. But Zakee Wheatley has really stepped up at that safety spot. And I think the secondary has been better than people expected. And I think all 3 levels of the defense is good. Like, and so I think USC might have a slight edge at receiver over defensive end, or defensive backfield, but
right.
it's not by much. And because of that, I think it's hard to see a pathway outside of a complete just brain fart by Penn State, by Drew. Like Drew Aller throws 3 or 4 picks. And like,
Yeah.
or the offense just really struggles, or Andy Kotelnicki decides that he's actually not a good offensive coordinator. Like,
well, and USC would have to come out of nowhere and get pressure on the quarterback. Zach, they blitzed 12 times last game. Try to guess how many of those 12 blitzes they got pressure on the quarterback with against Minnesota. 3.
It's 3. Okay. I underestimated.
It's still very low though.
It's
like,
very low. Yeah.
You should, if you are only getting pressure on the quarterback 25% of the time when you blitz, that's not good, dude. That is really, really bad.
Yeah.
So when you couple that with the fact that Drew Aller is much improved in the pocket, moving around this season, and I mean much improved, like that's been one of the better parts of his game this season is how he's been able to maneuver the pocket. When you have that coupled with USC's just how much they were blitzing and their inability to get pressure on Max Brosmer, which is a statue back there. Like I actually give Minnesota's offensive line more credit than some other people do. I actually don't think it's all that bad, especially considering how much of a statue Max Brosmer is. But like when you got Drew Aller back there and he's able to maneuver their pocket as well as he is, like it's not good. So
yeah,
it is going to take a performance from USC that just is uncharacteristic of them in order to win.
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying I can't pick them. So,
yeah, agreed.
I hear you, Philip, that JR is going to pick USC just because he can pronounce Miller Moss name without butchering it. Well, I can also pronounce Drew Aller, all right, or Alar, however you pronounce it. I don't know, but I'm still going to pick Penn State in this one.
Yeah, it's Aller. It's Aller.
But I'm going to pick Penn State in this one. I'm actually going to have it a little bit closer just because I do think Penn State has struggled a little bit with like blowing teams out that they should blow out. I'm not going to say they should blow out USC by like 3 or 4 touchdowns or something like that, but they probably should win by more, but I'm still going to pick them to win by 10 points, 34-24. And it's also on the road, so that's a tough part.
Yeah. I have 31-17.
31.
I think I think similar. I think USC, we're starting to see just like the reality of who they are, which is like, I don't think they're terrible, but I think they were pumped up by a win against LSU that honestly, I thought they weren't as talented as LSU, and they outcoached LSU. And I would argue that I think Franklin with a competent offensive coordinator is better than Brian Kelly. So I like even outcoached. I think being outcoached, I think is off the table here too.
Listen, dude, you're talking to one of the biggest Brian Kelly haters there is out there. So amen from me, man.
I like John Jacobs' commentary here. USC is the Kent State of the West. I feel like I'm getting I feel like, listen, I know I reference the Kent State game at least once a week on this show. And it's mostly because I still can't believe they let a schlub like me into the press box. So let's just be honest about this.
It was against Kent State though. They had open seats for it.
Yeah, they did. And they were like, I guess we can throw it to this guy. Who's this guy again? Yeah. So
one more thing to mention, and I'm not trying to kick USC while they're down, but I am also trying to kick them while they're down. Zach, Miller Moss only completed 3 passes of over 10 yards or more last game.
Yeah.
He's getting
Yeah.
progressively worse as the
Yeah.
year goes on. And I can't help but think it's because he's not confident back there. He's not confident behind his offensive line, and he's not
Yeah.
confident with what he's seeing. I think he can read coverages pretty well. We've seen that. But he's not
Mhm.
confident in what he's seeing with the disguised blitzes and, guys looking like they're going to blitz and then dropping off. Like, I just don't think he's comfortable back there.
Yeah. I think part of I was thinking about this. Why was Miller Moss so good in the first few games? Well, he did well in structure, but also no one had scouted him.
Yeah.
Well, now there's 7 games of film to scout. And unlike Caleb Williams, he does not have a plan B or a plan C. Whereas
Yeah.
Caleb Williams kind of always had plan B. He was just always operating on plan B and plan C.
Yeah.
Um, but I think people have figured out Miller Moss.
Well, and it's interesting because Miller Moss against LSU, he was actually pretty good under pressure, and he was actually pretty good under pressure against Michigan as well. Like that game, he threw 2 touchdown passes and didn't have any picks under
Mhm.
pressure. But this game against Wisconsin, he was awful under pressure, and this game against
Yeah.
Minnesota, he was awful under pressure. So if he
Yeah.
can revitalize what he did against Michigan and LSU, then I would give USC a chance. But
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm going to see that happen, especially when, for a lot of guys, it's hard to get that confidence back. Like there's got to be
Yeah.
something that happens, and especially against this Penn State defensive line.